欧洲对乌克兰态度出现分歧，美国的立场也备受关注。本月8号，匈牙利总理欧尔班前往美国佛罗里达州海湖庄园，拜访了美国共和党总统候选人特朗普。2天后，欧尔班在接受匈牙利电视台采访时透露，特朗普对于如何结束俄乌冲突有一个非常详细的计划。他还表示，特朗普承诺，如果再次成为美国总统，他不会给乌克兰拨钱，而没有美国，欧洲将无法资助乌克兰打仗，俄乌冲突将会结束。值得注意的是，欧尔班此次前往美国，并未拜访现总统拜登，引发外界广泛关注。深圳卫视注意到，自拜登2020年就任美国总统以来，欧尔班一直与拜登政府关系紧张，在援乌武器、对俄制裁等问题上与美国立场相悖，并且在美国压力下仍多次延迟批准瑞典加入北约。对于此次欧尔班会见特朗普，拜登恼羞成怒，在当日的竞选活动上强烈抨击称，特朗普这是寻求独裁。此外，拜登次日接受美媒采访时又犯恼误，誓言说美国不应介入乌克兰。
America made a mistake. We went after bin Laden until we got him, but we shouldn't have gone into Ukraine. I mean, we shouldn't have gone into the whole thing in Iraq and Afghanistan. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary. It just caused more problems in the race than it's clearly cured.
实际上，这并非拜登第一次混淆关键的国际事件和地点。去年6月，拜登在谈及俄乌冲突时，也误把乌克兰称为伊拉克。今年3月1号，拜登在宣布美国将向加沙空投救援物资时，又把加沙说成了乌克兰。针对拜登的最新口误，扎哈罗娃讽刺称，他没有搞混，他是再也憋不住实话。俄罗斯联邦安全会议副主席梅德韦杰夫10号在社交平台补刀称，傻子和疯子说的都是实话。
相关话题来连线特约评论员孙兴杰。孙先生您好。最近，匈牙利总理欧尔班与美国前总统特朗普会面。他透露说，特朗普对于如何结束俄乌冲突有一个非常详细的计划。您对此如何看？
欧尔班对媒体表示说，虽然不能够谈论特朗普的计划，但是特朗普的计划与匈牙利的观点比较契合。欧尔班的观点也很具有代表性：乌克兰没有办法自立，如果美国和欧洲不支持，冲突就会结束；如果美国不出钱，欧洲也无力资助乌克兰，那么冲突也会结束。欧尔班在欧盟国家领导人中是比较另类的，尤其是在俄乌冲突过程中，欧尔班的立场更接近于俄罗斯。但是需要看到的是呢，在涉及到欧盟、北约的重大的决策的时候呢，欧尔班还是基本上选择了随大流，包括瑞典加入北约以及欧盟对乌克兰的援助等等。欧尔班访美与特朗普会面，在美国大选之年，欧尔班非常明显的是站在特朗普一边，二人在移民问题上的观点呢也是非常的接近，在对俄罗斯的态度上也是如此。欧尔班希望特朗普能够卷土重来。其实，在美国大选之年，特朗普冲击的说法呢已经浮现出来。特朗普卷土重来的话，对大西洋秩序将会造成重大的冲击。在俄乌冲突的问题上，美国的政策调整将产生重大的冲击。对于特朗普卷土重来，或者是美国援助乌克兰计划受阻，欧盟尤其是欧洲的大国开始采取主动的行动。比如法国总统马克龙立场就非常的鲜明，甚至表示不排除向乌克兰派出军队。换句话说，如果美国停止援乌，俄乌冲突有可能进一步演变为欧洲大陆的战争。如果拉长历史的视角，就会发现这样的战争在欧洲历史上是比比皆是。英美援助乌克兰的情况下，俄乌冲突也没有超出欧洲国际关系史和战争史的范畴。毫无疑问，战争和冲突最终还是要通过谈判来解决。无论土耳其倡导的和平峰会，还是乌克兰参与其中的瑞士和平会议，都表明谈判是实现和平的必要一步。但是现在各方以何种姿态参与到和平谈判，还没有共识。美国国内政治的变动无疑会让俄乌冲突的进程更加的复杂，各种不确定的因素在增加，各方的预期呢也会更加的扑。
全国两会期间，国际社会高度关注中国蓝图、中国方案。直播港澳台推出特别策划“外眼看两会”，对话全球政界、商界和学界意见领袖，解码中国式现代化，聚焦新质生产力，探讨100年未有之大变局的应对。本期对话，英国知名中国问题学者、剑桥大学前高级研究员马丁·雅克。
noticed that new productive forces has been one of the keywords in global media coverage of China's 2 sessions this year. Why do you think the Western world pays so much attention to this relatively new concept?
The term productive forces, actually, anyone who is familiar with Marx will know this is an extremely familiar concept because Marx saw the economy in terms of productive forces and productive relations. So I think the use of the term is describing something very specific to China's situation at the moment. There's a tremendous emphasis on the importance of China's technological development, and it's got to find, to some extent, a new way forward. So this is absolutely essential to China's development, that it succeeds in developing these new productive forces.
今年政府工作报告将5%左右作为中国经济增长预期目标。马丁雅克认为，通过发展新质生产力，推动经济高质量发展，将有助于这一目标顺利实现。
In other words, above all, focusing on the new industries, the new sources of growth, which for China are visible very clearly in electric vehicles, in green technology. The sort of context of China's economic development has now changed, partly the change in the relationship with the United States.
针对中美关系，中共中央政治局委员、外交部长王毅在3月7号的两会外交主题记者会上强调，自去年11月两国元首旧金山会晤以来，中美关系改善确实取得了一些进展，但美方对华错误认知仍在延续，所做的承诺并没有真正兑现。马丁雅克认为，这体现出中美关系眼下的脆弱性。
There's a really serious lack of trust. This is a long-term change in the relationship between the US and China. This is going to be the underlying picture for still a long time into the future.
而直接影响当下中美关系的一个核心因素，则是今年的美国大选。这场主导美国政治舞台的大事件，使得全美政坛上下竞相营造恶化氛围，以博眼球，给两国关系带来逆风。马丁雅克注意到，面对眼下前总统特朗普很有可能再次当选，外界出现了一种讨论，即比起拜登，特朗普如果回归白宫，对中国来说更大程度上到底是好事还是坏事？对此，他认为拜登在遏制中国方面采取的动作和策略更具系统化和战略性，但特朗普最大的问题在于其反复无常，难以琢磨，不按套路出牌。再加上近年来中美关系趋于恶化，正是始于2017年特朗普上台后采取对华强硬措施，发起贸易战等。
I think the danger is that you just don't know what you're really going to get with Trump. You know, you've got to think about it in a broader global sense. If Trump is elected president, he gives great encouragement to right-wing forces in the West. We should never forget that this era of US-China relations was inaugurated by Trump. So I think it's not a time to unfasten our safety belts. It's probably a time to make them tighter.
马丁雅克提到，在特朗普眼里，比起与盟友合作、与世隔绝、保全自我，才更符合美国的利益。他也是自二战以来第一位持这样立场的美国总统。他认为这是美国霸权衰落的信号。
Ever since 1945, we lived in a world which has been dominated by the United States as the global hegemon and all its alliances. Trump, in a way, doesn't want to continue American trajectory of being a global power in the same way. And in a way, it is a kind of recognition of American decline, that it can't dominate the world in the way that it did before.
马丁雅克认为，美国霸权衰落和力量变弱背后的核心原因之一是中国和广大发展中国家的崛起，而这一现象的实质，则是旧有国际秩序的逐渐崩溃与新秩序的逐步建立。然而，在新秩序最终形成之前，定会经历一个动荡调整的阶段，全球各方势力以前所未有的思路或方式展开博弈，这便是眼下俄乌、巴以问题等世界冲突和不稳定性的根本来源。 作为西方知名中国问题专家，马蒂亚克曾在2009年出版著作《当中国统治世界：中国的崛起和西方世界的衰落》，以独到眼光剖析中国发展模式与西方模式间的根本异同，解读中国何以引领世界未来。他告诉深圳卫视记者，自己不久前刚完成一部约30万字的新书，针对当前世界格局下中国该如何面对新角色、迎接新挑战，带来最新观察。
You mentioned you just finished a new book on China. How is it different than your last one, and any interesting details you can share with us?
For this book, it was a bit like riding a bucking bronco because the situation kept changing more or less when I started it. China's carried on changing and the world's now started to change, which is very challenging. What is clear is that the world has changed so profoundly that American hegemony is no longer in the global interest, created a totally new possibility, which is a global order which for the first time in history will be based on a global majority, not a global minority. What we're moving towards now is a major democratization of the global order. But to get there, we're going to go through some very difficult situations, but the general process, the general trend of history is very positive.